Alright, so let's continue, and now we're going to work on the other half of the cart panel, which will go over here. So the design of it looks like this. So we need to have a divider below which we will be having two typography, one of total, the other one of the amount of all the items in the cart, and then a button. So let's structure this thing, and the thing is that the other thing which I've been thinking is that suppose if the cart items are way too much, as in the list of items in the cart is too long, then in that case it may add sort of like a scroll bar over here on the cart panel, which would not look nice. So what I mean is, if we head back over here, so we got the stack which will contain all the cart items. So suppose if the length, like if the cart items are way too much, then in that case it may look a bit odd like this. And let's also first add some spacing on the stack component. So let's pass in spacing to be of, how about 1, let's do 3, and I think that's much better. Now as you can see, the list, like we got a scroll bar, which obviously doesn't look nice because we also need to add the bottom part, which will be this one. So the thing what I'm thinking is, maybe we should be adding like a region over here, like to this point. I guess we should be showing the cart items, and the rest of the items, for that there should be a scrollable, like a scroll for such, like for this region. I hope you get the point. So for that, what we can do, firstly let's add some background color. It's kind of easy for us to visualize the entire thing. So if we add bg color prop on the stack with the value of red, we can actually see how much space this particular stack is occupying. So as you can see, this is the amount of space it's taking. So let's do one thing. Let's actually comment. Let's keep only one cart item for the time being. So that's what it is. So it means that this stack will be is going to take as much as of space as of the children within it. So what we can do is, let's set the height to be of 100%. That didn't make any change, which means that we first have to set the same thing on the parent of it, which in this case is this stack containing the entire thing. So if we do that, as you can see, that's what it is. So now what we can do is, instead of 100%, let's set it to be of something like 60%, like this. And now let's uncomment all the cart items so that we can see. So that's what it is. So what we can do is, sorry about that. So what we can do is, over here on the stack component, let's pass in sx, and let's set the overflow value of the y-axis, the vertical axis, to be of scroll, which means that if the items are, like if the children go outside the region of 60% as of the height that we are setting, then in that case we should be having the scrollable as such. So that's good. Now we can add the other part, we can work on the other part, which is this particular one. So let's do that. Over here I'm going to keep it the way that it is for the time being. So over here let's add stack, and for the divider that we have over here, I'm not sure whether you can see it, as the color is very transparent sort of. So for this divider we will be using the divider component provided by the MUI library. So, and below this let's place in another stack which will contain the two typography. Let's add in typography, the first one to be of total and the other one would be the amount. By the way, obviously everything will be dynamic as like once we implement the entire logic. And below this stack we will be placing in the button. By the way, this stack is supposed to have the direction of row, and because we want to set them apart, let's add justify content to be of space between. And now on the button that we have, making sure that we import it, let's set the text to be off, continue, maybe like this. So now if we save it, let's have a look, and there it is. All right, so now because we want this particular part, the bottom part, to stick at the very bottom, like over here, so for that, firstly let's again add the BG color thing, this one to be of green, so that we can easily see where exactly it is and how much space it is taking. So at the moment it looks like this. So over here we can, as we want to push it to the bottom, so in that case what we can do is, maybe we can wrap these two, like the above stack containing the cart items and the below part, this particular one, in a stack of its own, something like this. If we do that, we'll still have to do the height of 100% over here in such a way. And now let's add the BG color to be of blue. So that's how it looks. So I can see that the main stack is taking way too much height, which is not good. So instead of this thing, let's not do that. Let's not do this thing. Let's remove this stack, and right over here we can set the margin to the top of about 3. I think that's much better. Let's also add the spacing of 3. Let's see. That's cool. And where is the button? Let me just remove all the background colors now, because it's very confusing. So if we have a look, there it is. So in order to add the color, what we can do over here on the button component, let's set the variant to be of contained. Let's save it. That's cool. Let's remove the ugly box shadow by passing in disable elevation. That's cool. Now we just need to change the color, and let's also add some, let's increase the size of this button to match what we have in the design. So firstly, I'm gonna copy this color. Again, you can pause the video and do the same thing, copy it to your clipboard. And over here on the button, let's first pass in the size of large. By default, I guess it's medium. Let's see. Yep, let's set it to be of large. And I think that's much better. Now in order to change the color of a button, we can pass in the color prop, but the thing is that we have to specify a color object, a color which is coming from the palette in our theme. So at the moment we have all these, and the default one is primary. So I believe we have set the primary color to be of this at some point. So that's what it is using currently. So what we can do, let's add another color right over here. As of the new version, the version 5 of the MUI library, we are able to add color of our own in the palette. So over here I'm gonna add another one called BTN, and we have to specify a color object where the only color that we care about is the main one, and the rest of it will be auto generated. But along with this, there's also one other thing that we have to do, which is contrast. Let me open up the documentation, and over here we can see that if we have our own custom color, then we have the option of, like, we also need to specify, it's not mandatory, otherwise it will be black, I suppose, by default, but we can specify the contrast text. So what basically this thing is that if we are using it in a component and it has any children which makes use of this color, then that's the color that they are going to use. So when we use any of these color, like from the palette on a button, then the text color of that button is the contrast text. So now if we do not save this thing, let's first use this color so that it's easier for you to understand, and we can use the btn in such a way. As you can see, the color got changed, which is good, but we also need to change the button color. So for that, right over here we can pass down contrast text and set it to be of white, and that's perfect. Now I think we should also increase the font weight. So for that, within the typography, we are already changing the font family and text transform. So in this case, let's also pass down the font weight to be of 600, and that's perfect. All right, so I think that is good. Perfect. Let's also change the font family of these two typography. And for that, over here, we can just pass down the class name of Lato, which will do the job. Perfect. So this completes the first part of the cart panel. And now that I think of it, as the cart panel, let's call this thing, let's call the drawer to be the cart panel. But the internal content can be changed, because the first part is the cart itself, and the other part is the one where we have where we have the fields and stuff, like this particular one. So for this thing, let's actually change the name of the components so that it is easier for us to understand. Once again, so let's head back to the editor, and right over here we have components, cart, and the index, which is the cart component. So instead of cart, let's call it cart panel, because this thing will be displaying either of the two parts, like either the cart, this one, or the second part. So let's change the name over here as well. Let's also change the file name to be of cart panel, for which we'll also have to change it over here. Let's change it to be of cart panel. Same thing, cart panel in the home page. So if we do that, cannot resolve cart panel, obviously, because it has to be cart/cart panel. Initially it was index, so it was implied that we are targeting index in a directory. So now if we set it to be of cart panel, we should have the same thing. Beautiful. All right, I believe we should also increase the spacing between these two. And the other thing is, in case you're wondering that this scroll bar looks a bit ugly, which I kind of feel the same way. But the thing is, we should not blatantly follow the principle of making the UI good. We should also keep in mind the user experience is not tampered. So we do have the option, we can hide this scroll bar by throwing in some CSS, but at the same time, we'll also be killing the intuitiveness of the user to know that there are more items to the list. So I'm going to keep it the way that it is. So let's head back on the cart panel. On this tag, let's set it to be of, how about 5? And that's perfect. Alright, so this completes the first part of the cart panel, and in the next one we will be working on this, and we'll also have to figure out a way so that we can switch between these two parts, like these two screens. The first one, which is cart, and the other one, which is cart panel, for which I guess we'll also have to move the internal content someplace. So let's actually do that in the next video. Thank you for watching.